Hey guys, it's Marco again. I got an average 90 percentile log in Molten Core Heat level 3 and I ended up being rank 7 Rogue All-Star. My performance wasn't the best and I was on exposed armor duty since I was the only rogue in our raid. I'm quite disappointed with what they did in Molten Core. The bosses have the same mechanics as the Season of Mastery bosses and they added a hard capability: if you get touched by fire damage and you don't have 226 fire resistance, you die. It has been changed a bit lately, but it's still super dangerous to be under 226 resistance. I think that's completely lazy from Blizzard's side, but it feels like they have been lazy the whole SOD. Last special boss is a glorified tank and spank for majority of the classes. On our first kill last week, it was interesting for Warlocks since they were controlling the adds with all the CC. Overall, there's a low amount of players doing this raid, at least when looking at the logs. And there is an even lower number of players making their way through Heat 3, which is just the result of laziness in design. But enough with the rant about my unhappiness towards the game. Here are my talents and my gear used. This is my gear for fire resistance and I always use the flask for resistance. And this is my normal gear. I'm using combat potency when I don't have roll buffs and focused attacks when I have roll buffs. I always use Crimson Tempest as my cloak rune, Deadly Brew on chest. For bracers, since I was on exposed armor duty, I used Cut to the Chase, and using exposed armor together with Cut to the Chase will cost you about 500 DPS if you're fully buffed. So it's a really big difference, but your raid will benefit more than you will lose. However, for some fights you're killing multiple targets, and on those fights I went with Carnage since it's a bigger DPS rune and I didn't have to do expose. On gloves I was using Mutilate all the way. On belt I used Poison Knife for the majority of the fights. I did use Shuriken Toss on AoE fights. Legs are in Venom, boots Master of Subtlety, and rings Dagger and Nature Specialization. Anyway, here are the bosses. I won't do much commentary apart from explaining the bosses. Lucifron, separate the adds from the boss. The adds do mind control on players within 20 yards. And while they're alive, Lucifron takes 50% reduced damage. But Lucifron has such a low HP, it's just faster and easier to kill him while ignoring the adds. Lucifron is hella annoying with a curse, which increases the energy of your abilities by 100%. Try not to use any abilities then until you get them dispelled. Magmadar is just a tank and spank fight for DPS. Off tanks will just take the adds, focus the boss since he has a low amount of HP, and hope that you will have Fear Ward so you don't get feared like I did. Gehennas is another super easy fight. Off tanks take the adds and move them away from the raid and you just DPS the boss. Garr is the first annoying boss. We did him without roll buffs, since we were trying out a tactic. As a DPS you just focus on the boss, and off tanks just get aggro on the little adds. You need to have good enough DPS to do this, otherwise your off tanks will be in trouble. Easy way to do this is to kill 3 elementals and leave 1 alive and then kill Garr. We did this in our first clear. Also his little adds are doing dispels, so they can dispel beneficial buffs from you. Annoying part of this boss for DPSers is the fact that he spawns little elementals which charge and knock you to Africa, and you need to either face the wall or just run back. Geddon is another annoying boss, especially for melee DPS. Whenever he puts a living bomb on you, you need to move away from the raid and make sure to still be within Paladin aura range and explode. He'll do the Hellfire ability, which slowly ramps up in damage. It's a really big AoE and you just need to slowly move out. You can pad the DPS a bit by taking the first few ticks of the ability if you feel cocky enough. To log well on this fight, you just need to pray that you don't get 4 living bombs like I did.
AoE incoming. Run out.
I can't do that. Not ready yet.
AoE
Shazzrah is the only fun boss, because you can actually play with your gear, since he doesn't do any fire damage. However, I didn't want to test if you can have Dragon Breath Chili, the tactic is just kill him. Whenever he spawns a copy of himself on melee, it will start doing AoE damage, and then you just need to follow the tank while DPSing the boss and move away from the AoE. Sulfuron Harbinger. This is an AoE fight, all mobs share HP. Your task is to interrupt their healing, which requires a bit of coordination with your kick partner. And that's pretty much it. Golemagg is another tank and spang boss. 2 off tanks just take the hounds away from the boss and you delete the boss, which has a really low amount of HP. Majordomo is similar to Harbinger. It's an AoE fight, mobs don't share HP, but again your task is to just DPS and interrupt a specific mob with your partner.
Find shelter. Find shelter. Find shelter. Find shelter. Find shelter. Stop attacking.
Ragnaros is a dreadful fight to progress on, because he melts your weapon durability a ton and you will have to repair your weapon after each wipe. Ranged players spread out, while melee players are in two groups. One group is melee DPS with mana and the other group is without mana. This boss is a DPS race, so you need to force him to submerge at 50% mark. So in phase 1, just DPS him at max melee range and hope that he will resist a knock. When he submerges, the little ants spawn which can be taunted by a dummy, and you need to kill them all. Ideally, you will kill them in somewhat of a staggered fashion. You have to do this because when they die, they try to pull you inside and then explode. We had a tactic to always move to the range group when elementals begin to explode. So we're always moving to the same place and the elementals just following us. When you kill the elementals or the timer runs out, the boss re-emerges and you're again in a DPS race to 0% before he submerges again. In this phase, however, he keeps spawning little fire elementals and Warlock should control them or off-tank should pick them up. I was unlucky on this pull and I had Blade Flurry on when an elemental was passing and I got aggro onto him. Then I got knocked into the lava away from Paladin Aura, which caused me to take much more damage and I was out of range of healers and I died. Ideally, that elemental should have been taken away from me or banished. The last boss is a super easy fight. If you have enough DPS, you basically ignore the mechanics and just DPS the core. When the meteor falls, just move as melee unit to another place around the boss. Just make sure to be far enough since meteors explode in a big radius. Lastly, if you get a debuff, you need to pair yourself with the other player who got the debuff. If you don't have enough DPS for this fight, you want to leave 2 firefighters to die and you only protect 2 closer ones. Warlocks will do their best to control the fight, and when they get overwhelmed, they call out and you AoE all the elementals down, and then just go back to DPSing the boss. And that's the whole raid. Again, I need to say that I'm disappointed with Blizzard. There was literally nothing to discover in this phase, and to me the raid is a complete failure. I just hope that we won't need to wait too much for the next phase. With that said, thank you for watching, and bye bye.